Hey everyone, and welcome to today's deep dive. If you are an aspiring entrepreneur, startup founder, or maybe someone just standing on the edge of the diving board, thinking about taking the leap into starting your own business, this conversation is absolutely custom built for you.
Yeah. We aren't going to hash out standard business plans or social media marketing strategies today.
Right. The mission here is to equip you with the ultimate mental, emotional, and financial toolkit for entrepreneurship. We want to ensure you don't just survive the chaotic journey of building a company, but that you actually thrive in it.
Because, the mental game of entrepreneurship is notoriously the hardest part to navigate, yet it's the least talked about.
Oh, for sure.
So to build this toolkit, we are synthesizing a massive cross-section of research. We're pulling from dense academic papers on the economics of happiness out of the Brookings Institution, unpacking philosophical frameworks like the Japanese concept of Ikigai.
And we are examining core business strategy concepts like opportunity cost.
Exactly. We are also looking at some highly critical analyses of the classic follow your passion mantra, drawing really heavily on the work of Cal Newport and the Neuroleadership Institute.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting with the very first major hurdle of building a business, the terrifying decision to actually just do it.
Just jumping in.
Right. To leave the comfort of a steady paycheck, healthcare, a predictable schedule, and just jump into the complete unknown.
It's terrifying.
It is. And a famous example of this dilemma happened in 1994. So Jeff Bezos was climbing the ranks on Wall Street at a highly respected firm, D.E. Shaw.
He had ultimate security, a very lucrative career path.
But he came across this startling statistic. Internet usage was growing at 2,300% a year. She had to decide whether to stay put or walk away to start an online bookstore.
And the safer choice, the logical choice for most people was obviously to stay.
Of course.
What pushed him toward risk wasn't just blind ambition. It was a specific mental exercise he utilized, which author Halbert Hargrove details as the regret minimization framework.
Regret minimization. I love that.
It's brilliant. It's essentially a psychological time travel exercise. You project yourself forward to age 80, sitting in your rocking chair, looking back on your life.
Okay.
And from that vantage point, you name your potential regrets. You look at the paths you might wish you had explored, and you weigh the emotional weight of those missed chances against the immediate visceral fear of failure you feel right now.
So you are essentially weaponizing your future FOMO against your current fear of failure.
That is exactly what it is.
It's a brutal but highly effective lens. Bezos realized that at 80 years old, he wouldn't regret trying and failing to build Amazon. Like the sting of a failed startup fades over a few decades.
Right.
But he knew with absolute certainty that he would deeply regret missing the beginning of the internet boom. That what if would just haunt him forever.
Yeah, choosing the option that clears away those deepest long-term regrets makes the immediate risk feel a lot smaller.
It really does.
But, that emotional reframing provides the courage to jump. Taking that leap at 80 years old in your imagination is easy. Doing it at 30 or 40 when you have a mortgage and a family is another story entirely.
A completely different reality.
The second you leap, you hit the wall of cold, hard economics. When you decide to minimize your regret and start a business, you are immediately faced with what you were giving up to do it. That introduces the fundamental reality check for any founder.
Opportunity costs.
Exactly. Opportunity cost.
Which in economics, opportunity cost is just the value of the next best alternative that you give up when you make a choice. And for a new founder, breaking this down into explicit and implicit costs is literally a matter of survival.
Yeah, you have to know the difference.
Explicit costs are the painful but obvious ones. These are your direct out-of-pocket expenses, the money you spend to secure a domain name, the cash you use to hire a freelance graphic designer.
Or the budget you dump into a targeted ad campaign.
Right. You write a check, you watch the money leave your bank account.
Those are easy to track on a spreadsheet. The implicit costs are the hidden killers.
The silent ones?
Yeah. These never show up on a standard balance sheet, but they will absolutely drain you if you aren't aware of them. The most obvious implicit cost is the stable six-figure salary you walked away from to build your startup.
Yeah.
But it goes deeper into your lifestyle. It's the time you spend coding a minimum viable product on a Saturday instead of relaxing with your family.
Right. The implicit cost of starting a business is often the total destruction of your golf handicap.
Yeah.
Or the sudden realization that you haven't seen your core group of friends in 6 months.
Exactly.
If you choose to work on your startup for 12 hours a day, the implicit cost is the money, the rest, and the joy you did not get from whatever else you could have been doing with that finite time.
And economists visualize this constant trade-off using the production possibility frontier or the PPF. It's a framework used to show how limited resources are allocated.
And instead of the high school textbook example of a country choosing between producing pizza or robots.
Right.
Always pizza and robots.
Always.
Yeah.
Let's look at your startup. You have a finite amount of developer hours this week. You can allocate those hours to fixing a mountain of legacy bugs that are frustrating your current users, or you can allocate them to building a flashy new feature that your investors are demanding.
But you cannot have unlimited amounts of both. Pushing your resources toward the new feature actively pulls them away from platform stability.
It's a zero-sum game with your time.
It really is. For you, the entrepreneur, the PPF represents your time, your capital, and your mental bandwidth. Every single choice to invest an hour or a dollar into one area of your business is an active, unavoidable choice not to invest it into another.
You're constantly operating on that frontier.
And every decision has a shadow decision attached to it.
So true. Once you've used regret minimization to find the courage, and you've calculated your opportunity cost to understand the reality, you take the leap.
You jump.
You jump. And the moment you tell people you are starting a business, the most common piece of advice you will hear is, follow your passion.
Oh, everywhere. Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because leaning heavily into the research of author Cal Newport, that advice might actually be one of the most dangerous traps a new founder can fall into.
It is a highly romanticized notion. It looks great on a motivational poster, but Newport argues forcefully against it. And this is backed up by a really fascinating Stanford study conducted by psychologists Paul O'Keefe, Carol Dweck, who is widely known for her work on the growth mindset, and Gregory Walton.
What do they find?
They examined the hidden psychological implications of telling people to find their passion. They discovered that believing passions are something to be found fully formed implies that once you locate this magical passion, the work itself will be easy and infinitely enjoyable.
So it basically creates a fixed mindset around your career.
Yes.
The danger is that when a founder inevitably encounters a massive challenge like a product launch failing, or an investor pulling out this mindset makes them incredibly fragile.
Because it got hard.
Right. Instead of pushing through, they think, well, this is really hard and I'm miserable today, so this must not be my true passion. I should quit and go find my real passion.
It encourages surrender the exact moment the honeymoon phase ends.
That is so dangerous for a startup founder.
It's fatal. So instead of wandering around hoping to discover a passion, Newport advocates for career capital theory.
Okay, what's that?
The premise is that you put in the grueling, unglamorous hard work to master a specific skill that is rare and valuable in the marketplace. That mastery, the leverage it gives you, and the autonomy that comes with being an expert are what actually generate passion.
So you build passion through competence. You don't just stumble upon it in the wild.
Exactly. You engineer it.
You engineer it. And there's another layer to this trap highlighted by the University of the Potomac. They point out that while having passion for your work can definitely boost motivation and creativity, monetizing a beloved hobby can be destructive.
It ruins the hobby.
It does. Turning your weekend escape into a business can completely ruin it. Suddenly, your quiet love for baking or coding is driven by stressful quarterly deadlines, difficult clients, and the desperate, crushing need to make a mortgage payment.
The passion morphs into a chore.
Exactly.
And that transformation is a real risk. But the Neuroleadership Institute highlights an even deeper structural issue they call the passion paradox.
The passion paradox.
Yeah, research published in the journal Organization Science reveals a deeply concerning trend in the modern workforce. Passionate workers are systematically vulnerable to exploitation.
Because they care so much.
Right. Because our culture glorifies the hustle and the passion of the grind, managers often view it as perfectly acceptable to ask passionate employees to work weekends, sacrifice their sleep, or take on unpaid duties.
And the psychological mechanism behind this is called compensatory justification.
Yes.
It's an unconscious rationalization where employers convince themselves that passionate people don't actually need fair pay, boundaries, or time off, because the work itself is a magical reward.
Yeah. They rationalize the injustice.
Right. But for you, the listener, the entrepreneur building your own company, you don't have a boss exploiting you. You are the boss. The loud warning bell here is that your biggest risk is exploiting yourself.
You become your own most toxic manager.
You will convince yourself that coding until 3 a.m. on a Saturday, skipping your best friend's wedding, and ignoring your health is totally fine because you are following your passion.
Using compensatory justification on yourself.
Exactly, masking burnout as dedication. And this ideology has broad, real-world consequences beyond just the startup garage. Corporate cultures often weaponize this.
Oh, absolutely.
Take Pret a Manger, which has been cited for its culture of enforced happiness, where employees are expected to constantly project genuine joy, essentially turning human emotion into a highly monitored corporate commodity.
It's intense.
It is. Furthermore, sociological studies show this follow your passion ideology inadvertently reinforces societal issues like the gender pay gap.
That's a huge point.
Yeah, when women are socialized to adhere strictly to the follow your passion and do what you love mantras, the data shows they often veer away from high-wage, high-leverage sectors like computer science or engineering and gravitate toward historically lower-paid professions like nursing, teaching, or social work. The advice, while sounding purely positive, can systematically lead people down paths of long-term financial instability.
So if blind passion is a psychological trap and purely chasing a paycheck without caring about the work is soul-crushing, we need a better blueprint for structuring your business goals.
We really do.
You need a framework that balances sanity, income, and drive. And applying Maslow's hierarchy of needs to your career is the perfect starting point.
Okay, so how does Maslow apply to a startup?
Well, Maslow's model is incredibly grounding for ambitious founders. We all want to reach the pinnacle of the pyramid, self-actualization.
Right.
In a startup context, that means being a highly engaged, visionary founder whose daily work perfectly aligns with the grand personal mission to change the world, the dream. But Maslow's core rule is that you absolutely cannot reach or sustain that top tier if your basic foundational needs aren't met first.
You have to build the base.
Exactly. You need survival, meaning your startup has to generate enough actual cash flow to pay for your food, your housing, and your basic overhead. And you need security, safe working conditions, a sustainable routine, and health insurance.
Because if your business isn't providing those foundational layers, your grand, self-actualized passion will eventually collapse under the sheer stress of survival. You can't change the world if you can't pay rent.
You just can't.
But once you have that survival and security locked in, you can aim for a much more holistic target. And that target is Ikigai.
Ikigai.
Yeah, this is a Japanese concept that translates roughly to a reason for being, or the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. It was first popularized in 1966 by Japanese psychiatrist Mieko Kamiya.
And the way we most commonly see Ikigai applied in modern business strategy is through a Venn diagram, which was actually adapted by Western creators Andre Zuznaga and Mark Wynn.
Okay, walk us through the diagram.
The diagram posits that true, sustainable fulfillment, your Ikigai, is found at the exact overlapping intersection of four distinct elements. First, what you love. Second, what you are good at. Third, what the world needs. And fourth, what you can be paid for.
Breaking that down is where the magic happens. If you have what you love and what you're good at, that's a passion. But if nobody's willing to pull out their credit card and pay you for it, it's just a hobby. You'll starve.
Right.
Conversely, if you have what you're good at and what you could be paid well for, that's a solid profession. But it might feel incredibly empty if you don't actually care about it, or if it doesn't solve a real problem the world needs fixed.
It's the ultimate balancing act. It takes the emotional drive of passion, the hard-earned mastery of career capital, and the cold economic reality of opportunity cost, and merges them into one highly sustainable target.
It's so practical.
And this isn't just theoretical business jargon either. Dan Buettner, a researcher for National Geographic, extensively studied the extreme longevity of the people in Okinawa, Japan.
The blue zones.
Exactly. He identified Ikigai as a primary reason they live so incredibly long. The older populations there rarely even desire to formally retire.
Because why would you retire? If you are spending every day doing work that engages you, that provides value to your community and that supports your life.
Right.
And a crucial piece of the Okinawan puzzle is that they don't do this in grueling isolation. They are supported by moai, these deeply connected lifelong groups of friends. They build their purpose alongside a community. It's a stark contrast to the lonely, isolated grind of the typical Silicon Valley startup founder.
A sustainable approach to your daily work, supported by a real community, is literally life-extending. But we have to address the elephant in the room here.
Let's do it.
You are building a business, and most entrepreneurs harbor the dream of the massive financial exit.
Oh, yeah.
The unicorn valuation, the IPO, the multi-million-dollar buyout that sets you up for life. We have to look objectively at the relationship between that ultimate financial success and your actual human happiness.
So what does this all mean? Will hitting that massive financial milestone, the life-changing exit, actually make you happy forever? To understand this, we have to tackle a psychological phenomenon called the hedonic treadmill, or hedonic adaptation.
The hedonic treadmill is the deeply ingrained psychological process where humans rapidly adapt to major events, both positive and negative, and eventually return to a relatively stable baseline level of happiness.
So you just get used to it.
Exactly. Think of it like your eyes adjusting to a dark room. When something amazing happens, like selling your startup for $20 million, your happiness absolutely skyrockets. You feel incredible.
Top of the world.
But very quickly, usually within a few months, that new wealth just becomes your baseline normal. The mansion and the sports car just become your house and your commute. You adapt.
Wow.
And suddenly, you require an even bigger success or even more money to feel that same spike of joy again. You are running on a treadmill, expending massive amounts of energy just to stay in the exact same emotional place.
A tragic, real-world example of this adaptation failing to bring peace is the story of Billy Bob Harold Jr. So in 1997, he was stocking shelves at Home Depot, struggling through a tough life. Then he won a $31 million Texas lottery.
Completely life-changing.
On paper, his life was instantly solved. But the wealth brought a tidal wave of relentless demands. Family, friends, and strangers constantly wanted a piece of him. His spending spiraled out of control, his marriage collapsed under the unique strain of sudden wealth, and ultimately he took his own life.
It's so sad.
It is a harsh, extreme reminder that sudden wealth does not inherently buy happiness. Often it just amplifies your existing internal problems and strips away the normal coping mechanisms you used to rely on.
It perfectly illustrates that money is an amplifier, not a cure. And this leads us to dissect a very famous economic myth that you've likely heard repeated in podcasts and articles for years.
Oh, I know the one.
The widely cited idea that human happiness completely caps out once you earn about $75,000 a year. The prevailing theory was that once your basic Maslow-level needs are met, housing, food, healthcare, any extra money doesn't make you any happier.
I hear that $75,000 cap thrown around constantly at networking events.
Constantly.
But the Brookings Institution data completely dismantles that myth. Economists Betsy Stevenson and Justin Wolfers analyzed Gallup World Poll data from 155 countries. We are talking about an incredibly robust data set representing over 95% of the world's population. And they found absolutely zero evidence of a satiation point. The $75,000 happiness cap does not exist.
What Stevenson and Wolfers found instead is that the relationship between your income and your subjective well-being is what economists call a linear log relationship.
Let me break down the math on that linear log relationship because it's crucial for setting your financial expectations.
Yeah.
What it means is that, yes, happiness absolutely does continue to rise with income indefinitely. There is no magical dollar amount where more money stops adding to your overall life satisfaction.
Right.
However, because it is a logarithmic relationship, the rate at which money buys happiness changes drastically as you get richer. It takes exponentially more money to get the exact same incremental bump in happiness.
So if you are grinding away making $30,000 a year, and your startup suddenly takes off and you double your income to $60,000, that extra $30,000 radically transforms your daily life. It removes massive amounts of stress. Your happiness spikes.
It's night and day. But if your company is highly successful and you are personally taking home $300,000 a year, getting another $30,000 bump barely registers on your emotional radar.
Doesn't even move the needle.
It might pay for a slightly nicer vacation, but it doesn't change your baseline. To get that same massive life-altering spike in happiness you felt when you went from $30K to $60K, you would need to double your income again. You need to go from $300,000 to $600,000.
Yes.
So your startup's financial success will increase your evaluative well-being, but you are facing brutal, diminishing marginal returns. It's going to take staggering exponential amounts of wealth to keep moving the emotional needle as you climb.
Which brings this entire toolkit full circle. You cannot rely on the financial payout alone to sustain your mental health or your happiness over a decade-long startup journey.
It won't work.
The hedonic treadmill guarantees your brain will adapt to the money. And the linear log reality of economics means the happiness returns on your wealth will relentlessly shrink over time. That is exactly why finding your Ikigai, diligently building rare career capital, and deeply understanding your implicit opportunity costs are so critical. The daily execution of the work itself has to sustain you because the money alone simply won't.
Let's summarize all of this for you, the aspiring founder listening right now. To truly succeed and to build a business that doesn't systematically destroy your life in the process, you need to deploy this toolkit.
Step 1.
First, use the regret minimization framework to project yourself to age 80 and find the courage to take the leap. Second, rigorously calculate both your explicit and implicit opportunity costs. Understand exactly what you're trading your finite time, energy, and relationships for. Third, avoid the dangerous trap of expecting passion to be magically found. Instead, focus on building career capital and aiming for the sustainable intersection of Ikigai. Do not become your own toxic boss.
Please don't.
And finally, recognize that while hitting a massive financial exit will absolutely improve your life, the hedonic treadmill is always waiting in the wings to reset your baseline. You must build the life you enjoy living today, not just one you hope to cash out on tomorrow.
If we connect all of these psychological and economic realities to the bigger picture, it leads to a rather profound realization about the very nature of entrepreneurship.
Let's hear it.
If the hedonic treadmill is an absolute hardwired psychological guarantee if your brain is biologically destined to eventually adapt to whatever happens to you, whether you achieve the staggering, unbelievable wealth of a unicorn startup or you face the crushing, humiliating failure of bankruptcy, doesn't that actually make the very concept of risk an illusion?
Oh.
If your day-to-day happiness is destined to reset to its baseline either way, then the financial and social risks of starting a business aren't nearly as dangerous as they feel in your head. The only thing you truly cannot adapt to, the only pain that the treadmill cannot erase, is the regret of never having tried in the first place.
That completely reframes the entire concept of failure. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take these insights, use this toolkit to protect your mind, your time, and your business, and go build something truly amazing. We'll see you next time.